good friend of mine, Kathleen, Cooke, and you know, women have the right to the prerogative to change their minds, right?
Right.
Right. Okay. Well, you see a presentation there that has a nice title. That's not what she's going to talk about. She's going to talk about influencing the world. All right, we live in a fast-paced culture. For men and women, juggling personal lives and career continues to be one of our greatest challenges. Kathleen's work in the media business for 25 years, both in front and behind the camera, raised successful daughters, and she still likes her husband, Phil. You'll hear Phil later tonight. You'll be particularly amazed after you hear it. She doesn't have all the answers, and God's taught her lots. But the most important thing is that He wants us to be in a vibrant relationship with Him, using our skills and tools for His kingdom. Her skills and tools are in media, where she sees an increasing need for Christians to be informed and trained on how to use it more effectively to bring hope to our fast-paced culture. Put down your cell phones and listen in. Kathleen Cooke, come on up.
It's great being here. Phil and I have been out there many times in the audience, and you guys are awesome. Thank you, Jim and Susie, for having us here. And thank you for what you're doing to raise the church in so many levels in ministry. So this is how you can get a hold of me. I have a monthly or a weekly blog at KathleenCooke.com and a monthly newsletter journal at influencelab.com/women if you want to sign up. A lot of men sign up for it too. So I'll let you join in. So that's how you can get a hold of me. For 25 years, yes, 25 years we're celebrating this year, Phil and I have had a media company in Burbank, California. And we've assisted many ministries and done some feature films. Anybody see the Hillsong film, Let Hope Rise, this year? We executive produced that film. Had The Insanity of God in film this year. Had a couple Super Bowl commercials out. So we've done a few things out there, and it's been a great journey to get together. And make that go. So this was Phil and I in 1991 arriving in California in Burbank. We were headed into the media business. I went in and became a Screen Actors Guild actress, doing a lot of commercials and a lot of work on set. And Phil went into producing and directing. And God planted a seed. We felt we were farmers, and we weren't really sure how God was going to harvest what He had planted in us. But it's been an incredible journey for 25 years. In 1992, we went to Moscow to help Christians who were working there to use media more effectively. You see, the opportunity around the world is much different than it is in this country. And we met a gentleman while we were there who handed us a VHS tape. And he said, I've heard your teaching. I've seen some stuff that you've posted on the internet. And he said, I've put together a Christian talk show in St. Petersburg. And he said, would you watch it and kind of evaluate it for us? Well, we looked at it, and it was pretty good. And, you know, rudimentary budget-wise, he had very little budget. But we said, well, all of the airways are being owned by the national government. Where are you showing this? How are you showing this? And he looked at us and he said, well, that's an interesting question. He said, I couldn't find any other channel that would take it, and so I've put it on the porn channel. And so every Friday night, a Christian talk show is on the porn channel in St. Petersburg. We thought, what a better place to have one, right? So that began, though, the watering of the seed within us. It wasn't that we were talented in the skills and the tools that God had given us, but He had given us a greater vision of how we can use media to affect the world and tell the greatest story ever told. So we've been around the country. Phil shot in over 60 countries now. I've been in front of the camera, behind the camera, doing PBS specials. And yes, that is Joel Osteen with us pulling our cable as we produced his television show and worked with his family for a number of years and taught him how to use media effectively. I think we've done a pretty good job with that one. A couple of years ago, we started our own nonprofit called the Influence Lab. And the first initiative, of course, was to train men and women around the world to use media more effectively. And this fall, we were able to take a team of 5 from Hollywood to Cairo, where we were able to teach 2 ministry groups there who are doing incredible work with Muslims. I wish I had 20 minutes to tell you what God is doing around the world with some of these ministries and the numbers of Muslims that are coming to the Lord and what's happening. It's really quite thrilling. So the influence, the second initiative was for me to begin Influence Women. For several years, I directed the Bible and Media Conference, then went on to found Christian Women in Media at CBS Studios, and then the Ascend Women's Conference in Los Angeles. But God has now honed my skills, brought me into a new season where I feel He's strategically placing me with top women in the media business in Hollywood. And we are writers, producers, directors, those involved in media, and we are raising the bar. We are gathering women to be thought leaders. You know, we have tools, we have the ability to be writers, producers, directors, but what is it that we need to be doing with those tools? How can we raise the bar in what we are doing and that raise our influence as Christians around the world? That's what Influence Women is all about. And women today are moving up. We are in higher levels of the corporations, and we are working more and more in strategic places. God is calling women out, and it's an exciting time. So how, men, are you involved in that? How can we work together? I believe that God is calling us to quit competing with each other and start complementing each other. We need to be working together as one. We need to be coming together as a group. I love the Barnabas group because you guys are outside the box. You're not from any one church, any one organization, but you are coming together as one and working together, men and women, side by side. So for a second, I want to talk about what is our place today? Who are we as men and women? Well, first of all, we're not getting married. Most of did you know that statistics tell us that 65% of the apartments in New York City are occupied by single adults. We're changing jobs an average of 8 times in our lifetimes. We are a mobile society. We are a society that's a world that's very expensive. The family car in many parts of the world is a motorcycle. And women are working out of the homes. Men are working out of the homes as never before. Women are getting more secondary degrees than ever before and more graduate degrees than men. It's a changing mobile world, and what's changing it is technology. So you see, for thousands of years, men have been hunters and women have been gatherers. What's changed that? Technology. Technology has changed the world, and you know that. You all are driven by your cell phone. The average person today checks their cell phone about 125 times a day. Junior high school kids usually check their phone about 85 times a day. So technology is changing things for us in a phenomenal way. You see, men used to have to be strong and physically fit to be the hunters, but women are now doing it with their brains. We're doing it with technology, and it's changing the world. The third initiative of the Influence Lab is what we're just beginning to birth, and that is to raise the bar of the profile of Christians in our world. You and I know out there that our reputation as Christians within media and where we work is not stellar. We get a lot of criticism. We are being bombarded with thousands of media messages a day, and those messages are, by and large, are negative messages for the Christian audience and for Christians. We're not doing well in our world. And so we want to create a team of people, an agency, a go-to agency that would have thinking people on it, intelligent people who can speak to the media, so that when news stories hit, when breaking issues happen, we will have those go-to people. The ACLU has one, the SPCA has one, LADO has an organization. We want to create the Influence Lab organization that would be who the media would call, so that we can help raise the profile of Christians in media. So pray about that one with us. You know, Jesus was born into a carpenter family. I feel that, that wasn't just by chance. God put Jesus into a family where he had to learn a skill. But I've traveled the world and I have never seen a piece of furniture that Jesus made. I've never seen one even that Joseph made. I've seen a lot of bones of the disciples, supposedly, and I've seen pieces of cloth that supposedly were the burial cloth of Jesus. But Jesus had a skill. However, his greatest skill that he had was telling stories and asking questions. You see, as an adult, he put his skills aside, having learned those skills, taking a raw piece of wood, cutting it, honing it, shaping it into something of beauty. And that's what each of you have out there. If you're a lawyer, you have tools. If you are a doctor, you have your tools. Businessmen, bankers, whatever you are in, I would challenge you to examine the tools that you have, that God's given you, so that he can take your tools and grow them, to think outside the box and how you can use your gifts and talents and skills for a greater purpose that God has for you. Those tools, I ask you today, which tools do you have? Lilias Trotter was an artist in the late 1800s, early 1900s. There's a wonderful film about her called Many Beautiful Things, and I would encourage you to get that and watch it. She was a girl of 12 when her father died, and her mother took her to Venice, and they happened to be staying at the hotel of the famous artist John Ruskin. And her mother sent her drawings to John and said, "What do you think? Do you think my child has any promise of being an artist?" Well, John at the time didn't think women could be an artist. They couldn't be serious artists at all. But he took a look at her drawings and he said, "Oh my goodness," he said, "if you will focus on your art, you will be one of the greatest artists of all times. In fact, I can make you immortal." And as Lilias trained with him and grew, she also started to do work in the slums of London, working with the prostitutes and the abandoned children. And she realized that God had given her skills as an artist. Those were her tools. But God was calling her to a greater purpose. And so she left and went to be a missionary in Algiers and spent the rest of her life there. And do you know, they say the reason there is Christianity in that part of the world is because of the initial work that Lilias Trotter did. You see, she was interested in not becoming immortal in this world, but she wanted to be immortal in the kingdom of God. She wanted to be forever with him. And she wanted others to know that they had the chance of eternal life. That is who we as Influence Women and we in the Influence Lab want to encourage the people in media around the world to be able to do, to create those wonderful, that wonderful content, those wonderful stories that can change the world. Influence Lab is all about telling stories and asking compelling questions. We're all about creating a place where men and women can come together and be thought leaders. We're all together about raising the profile of what Christians can do, because we're all about running toward the suffering. You see, Jesus is in the midst of the suffering, and he says to each of you, if you want to know me better, you have to run in the midst of the suffering. If you run away from the suffering, you're running away from me. So I encourage you tonight, run toward the suffering. Run and be where Jesus is. That's where Influence Women are. That's where we need to be. You are listening to some incredible men and women here tonight, and many of you have come many times listening to some incredible men and women who are doing wonderful things with the gifts and tools that they have. I encourage you and I applaud you for continuing this organization and doing this. I think it's the most important thing that you could possibly be doing today, because it's not only gathering us separately in our own private churches, but it's gathering us together as one. So please watch this.
I am. I am a Christian.
I'm a follower of Christ.
I am a believer. And we
are the church.
You are as one tonight here. Continue on to be those influencers. Continue on to use your tools. We are the church, and we're going to be strategic as one. Thank you.